Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video, it's part 44, but it's really a continuation of what I was doing in the last video in 43. It's not a whole new thing, it's a continuation. So in that last video I was putting the suspension on the car, and today what I want to do is try to get on the steering box, possibly, the idler arm, the drag link, the tie rod ends, the sway bar, and the strut rod rods, or strut, lower control arm strut rods. So hopefully I can get all that in place, and we'll see how far along I can get. I may even try to put the rear axle underneath the car today. I'm not sure just yet, but let's see how far I can get. Hey, I made a little rhyme. Yay! Alright, so I have laid out the parts that I'm going to be using. The strut rods, I have the idler arm, the pitman arm, the drag link right here, the gray piece. I have tie rod sleeves, sway bar, bushings for the strut rods, tie rods ends, some hardware, and the steering box is down there. So there's a couple things I want to address that I'm going to try to do. I don't know that I like the way this bolt fits in here, so I'm going to try to do something with that. And if I can remedy that, well, that'll be on Patreon. Alright, so I'm going to start putting some pieces on the car. I wanted to point out that I did get these painted, and they're a little shinier than I wanted them to be, but they may be okay to just leave them alone. If not, I may go over them again with the matte finish. Also, I have the bushings made, and I can't tell you how happy I am that these fit basically as I designed them to. So the sequence here is the way this sits in there. The original piece is separate, so like this is different. Somebody commented on some pictures that I posted how these are red, and apparently that was how they were put on originally. I really don't know. I'm going to assume that's correct. So you have in this package these washers and the nuts, along with these bolts that are dyed red. Now I don't know what significance of the red is, like if that was something they did on the at the assembly line for some reason, or maybe it was to note that whenever they were putting these cars together, they knew if they grabbed the red bolts, that's where they went. You make it as simple as you can for the end user. Now what I find interesting is these washers. They don't interact with anything. So why do they have a flat spot? Well, I would think at some point of production there may have been a washer that went against a lip or a flange and it just kept it from rotating, but I really don't know why these are made this way. So I don't know that it matters which way they face. Now I'm going to put this on, and it's going to sit at an angle, and with my little bushings it's going to take away. So like if I don't have the bushings, you can see how much this can move, and I really don't like that. So I'll put that there and this one here, and now very little movement. There's only the slop in the hole. These are lock nuts, so I don't see any reason to put a lock washer behind them, and that is a 9/16. This doesn't cause a problem. Yeah, no life left in this. Okay. Now my understanding is there should be inside of this crush tubes, or crush resistant tubes, because you can see little weld spots here where they tack welded those in. Same way with the muffler hangers. you know, to not crush this box. You could probably reach in there with a screwdriver and hit them, but the intent was you don't crush that box by having pieces of pipe inside there, basically. Okay, that's all I'm going to do on those. Now, if we look at some other pieces, we have the drag link. This should fit just fine right there. Now, I'm going to leave this loose for the moment. I'm just showing you where it goes and how it goes on there. Now, I do need to install the steering box over here. Get some of the dust off of here. So I'll use these along with the lock washers and the angled washers. So it should be able to, and this is where it comes into play on that one. You can see it's got clearance. And you know, it might have been that rather than make one washer for this location, they just said, hey, let's angle all of them. And that way they don't have to have a special washer anymore. And these two, I'm just, oops, just gonna set in there. Okay, now, I don't know what the ratio is on this, what the turn is, lock to lock, but this is a typical Borgeson kit, and you'll see that it goes in, and let me get this angled right, so that these three holes line up like that. I should possibly, before I even start this, verify that I can get these started. Okay, so let's see if I can make this happen. Hold my mouth right. Looking better already, isn't it? Should also have the same crush tubes inside of this frame rail. Okay, that takes care of the steering box. Now, the only gray area that I have with this is when I put it away or put it on, is it centered? As in, is the swing, like, is it at zero? If you understand what I'm saying. I don't know how to tell at this point where this is from left to right. And I don't know if they've put it in with the with it at zero, or if it is you know, index left or right. I just don't know. So this does have keys on it. There's 4 keys, so you can index this where it needs to be. Now I want to look at this, the original one again, just to get an idea of how it's in there. So it's kind of tucked under a little like that. If we look at the keys, that's the only place it's going to go. I want to see if I can turn this. Okay, so that's very well, could be centered and about there. So yeah, that's going to be the right location. I can tighten that up. And I'm basing that on the fact that there's the index grooves. If I moved it one way or the other, it's going to push it out of the way. And all I'm doing right here is just making sure this is not going to come apart. I don't know that that boot does much. So there we go. Now, this will connect to that. Yeehaw. So we got that much done anyway. And it's not complicated. I don't know if I'll make a long segment on this, but you're gonna have an inner and an outer. You're also gonna have the sleeves with the clamps. Like this should only fit one way, right? Yeah, that's it. Since you're going to be rotating these to make the length what you need. Really simple design. There's nothing you could do to make it any better, I don't think. This is going to be the reverse thread. Now, what I can do, just because, I'm going to get the length of threads about the same as I look at it. And I can do a comparison of the original. So you can see hopefully you can see, quite a bit of difference in that length. And that should be pretty close. Now, I still have to put the Zerk fittings in. Yeah, short of grease on that. Okay. So again, the little one goes to the outside. And this one goes to the inside. Now I got to figure out where the pinhole is. Okay. Things are starting to get a little more complicated. Can't just duck in and out anymore. Actually, I could probably just bend both of those around. All right. I'll get the other side in, and we'll look at whatever comes up next, which will probably be getting the strut rods in. So, okay, I have the other tie rod in place, and I was looking through the parts bin, or the parts box, the new parts, and it comes with these strut rods and lower control arm bolts. Now, normally I would probably use those, but since we're using a slight variation, I'm probably going to use what came in the package. So when I open this up, there's a variety of things that'll come out. Let me just dump it out. Okay, so we've got a collar, let's say. It looks like, I'm not sure what the sequence is here. We've got 2 collars. We've got 4 big washers. We've got 4 decent sized bolts here. A series of nuts, some lock nuts. And I'm going to say that the big nuts are going to go on the front. Pretty simple there. And these bolts are going to go down through and lock this in. Because my mind tells me you want that interaction. If this were on here, what do these do? Unless that's just meant to be some sort of extra support that goes inside, because this will fit in that. Oh, wait, here we go. Aha! So there it's showing left caster rod shown. So big nut, cupped washer, rubber bushing, sleeve, locator ring on the front, rubber bushing, washer, nut. Let's do that. Install this, possibly. I don't know if I can get it. Oh, that's gonna be fun. Run that nut down all the way. Okay. Now, arg, arg, arg. Okay. I don't know how well you can see this. I'm trying to I don't know how well I can get my head down here to show you all this, but anyway, there's the inner bushing, the outer collar, inner bushing, outer collar, rubber piece, that, jam nut. Now, like I was saying, I feel like there should be another jam nut, because although it has this cotter pin hole out here, what good is that if the nut can move? I don't like that. I don't like that. Torque caster rod and lower control arm bolts, 90 foot-pounds. Assemble caster desired settings by threading the bushing assembly forward or rearward on caster rod. Torque caster rod adjustment nuts. to 75 foot-pounds and install provided cotter pin, complete alignment and road test vehicle. Okay. So these bolts are supposed to be at 90 foot-pounds. So for now, I'm just going to run these down with my small impact. Alright, and those are 3/4 of an inch, by the way. So now that these are tight, I'll check torque later. The other part of the instructions say to measure and find a point to reference. So I used the head of this bolt and I came forward to the flange, the mid flange on this bracket or brace. And on the original car, original part, it was 19 and 13/16. So it just tells you to try to copy that. So if I take this tape measure and I come up here, it's really, that's about 19 and a half. So it says to adjust this to get that back roughly where it should be. So I'll tighten that up, do some measuring, and try to get as close as I can. A few more turns. Now at the same time, I didn't loosen this front one up. At this point, I'm not worried about that front one because I have to compress these bushings anyway. And this is just going to help do that. That's really close. That's really close. Now the instructions also say this forward, the torque caster rod adjustment nuts, tighten that to 75 foot-pounds and install the cotter pin. So that's a lot, 75 foot-pounds. So the compression is going to squeeze this in. Hopefully this one doesn't, it shouldn't change anything. It might. So you might have to go back and forth on this a little because as these bushings compress, it could change this depth, but you would think it shouldn't because it can't come forward anymore. But if this forward bushing can compress, then it'll want to pull it forward again. So just have to play with it a little bit. I don't know that I'm going to go to that extent at this point. I just need it to hold it in place so that it's able to be moved around. Okay, I've done my adjustments up front. Got out my handy dandy Mach tools, 1/2-inch drive torque wrench, set to 90 foot-pounds as it instructed. Let's see if I can't get it to stay while I torque it. There we go. All right, do that to the other side and we'll move on. I think I can get the sway bar up in place. All right, so I've opened up the sway bar and it has the mount brackets, the sway bar end links, and here's the other mount bushing bracket piece. So that just has a split in it. You open that up, wrap it around the sway bar, and then take the carrier and wrap it around it. And of course it does come with hardware, so I'll probably use these. It doesn't need to be anything super fancy. Looks like we've got probably 8 washers. Yeah, 8 washers. So they're going to expect you to put a washer, and then they've got these lock nuts. So let me see if I can organize this. Sneak in here. And of course the challenge is trying to get it up in place, basically by yourself. And I could probably use a stand or something to help hold it up here. Get it just get a nut started on it. There we go. All right. Okay, there we have it, at least for the moment. So I made a decision. I'm going to use the gaskets, the cork gaskets that came from Kentucky Mustang, and this should only fit probably one way, and there it lines up. I'm also using the hardware that came in the master kit, so they have these bolts as part of that brake shield kit. And the dust shield will go on. It has this air scoop basically that goes towards the front, so that goes on like so. And then this collared piece has a little flange on it, and that'll go next. Now that's only going to fit one way as well, so if you get everything lined up, hopefully you can get the bolts to start. And this doesn't require, in my opinion, any kind of special torque. Just make sure it's tight. I'm not going to snap these off. Okay, that's taken care of. Okay, I'm going to move forward on this. Of course, this is a rotor. I have the bearings here, and you know, they come with a race, and that race should already be in the rotor, and it is front and rear. So normally, if you were like replacing these in an old rotor, you would replace the assembly. I'm not going to press out that race. It doesn't make any sense. This is going to fit just fine and operate like it should. Now, set that aside. So this is the inner, and this is the outer. And what you'll find is these will need to be greased. So let me just check, make sure that's going to fit properly. And it does. Okay. Also have a seal that goes on the back. So that'll press in there. All right. Also going to retain the original nut, a little castellated keeper, and the washer, keyed washer. So set those two pieces aside, that aside, and get rid of the trash. Also the dust cap. So I'll do the back one first. And this is how I was taught to do this. So you would basically take grease, put it in your palm of your hand. Obviously you want to have a glove on, and then pack the outer portion. And what that'll do is it'll push grease into and out of each one of these little rollers. This is how they did it for years and years, and many people just did it with bare hands. I don't recommend that. Do the same on this one, on the front side of it, or the back side, however you want to look at it. Now, people will get carried away, in my opinion, when they put grease in these, in the housing, in the rotor itself. They want to pack it, and that's okay. I mean, it's kind of a waste of grease, because what happens is the grease can't, it's not like oil where something is picking it up and slinging it around. The grease is constantly being rotated within the bearing. So it doesn't hurt to add some extra grease in there. In fact, I'll put some on the inside. But I don't pack this thing full of grease. It just doesn't make any sense. Leaves you wasting a lot of grease. And I will add more here. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but it's something that you don't benefit a lot from it. Now that I've greased up my glove real good, or gloves, and obviously I will degrease these rotors. They come with oil on them, so I will spray them down with cleaner. This seal, you just tap it in. Make sure it's flush. So that one's done. Move on to the front one. Of course, same process. Get a glob of grease on your glove and pack that bearing as well. You can see it all pushed up. See that right there? It all came through those rollers. And I'll put more in here as I did on the other side. Now this one, of course, doesn't have a seal that goes on the front. It has the cap. So, I'm going to clean off my gloves. May even swap out my gloves. I don't know yet. So I've got my washer nut, little castle nut. Take this and set it up on here. Nice. That'll slip on. Put the nut. Now this is where people panic a lot of times doing this. It's like they don't understand, you know, and I get it. A lot of people don't understand how this works. The bearings are tapered. So when you're compressing this, they're both tapered inward like that. And so the idea is that you're compressing that taper, and you can kind of feel this as you roll it around. And what I'll do is I'll loosen it and retighten it a few times, and you can feel the rollers become smooth. If you overdo it, you'll feel it you should kind of bind. Ultimately though, it's hard to get these, I say wrong, you know, you should never feel play from side to side when you do this, obviously. But this is kind of how I was taught to do it. And then of course you line up the teeth on the castellated nut to where it lines up across the hole. So there's the hole. Try to find one that matches. Now I'll have to see if I have a good cotter pin, but you put the cotter pin through, bend it back around. Dust cap. Okay. Now for the caliper. All right, so the caliper shows up with a banjo bolt, 2 compression washers. I'm not going to put those on. It has these clips, which I know go against the shoes. I'm not exactly sure how these go. I know these pins, I think, interact with this. So I'll have to look at that, see if I can't figure that out. And these, of course, are the bolts that are going to hold the caliper. So, if I remember, the bolts have to go. Just set this up in place. This is the left hand. Okay, I didn't take the other assemblies completely apart when I did the disassembly part of this. However, this brake pad fits here. This is the outer brake pad, and there are notches that line it up on either end. And then these pins go through the brake pad, or yeah, brake pad itself. I was going to say brake shoe. Go through that. Makes you appreciate modern versions of this. I mean, it really does. So, and then these clips right here are intended to slip over this pin and lock on. Now, this is not the best design. Because that pin, my goodness, you have to bend this thing. There's no other way around it. That pin has to go through that. So it's almost like you have to bend this. Wow, okay. I don't know an easy way to do this. I bet you they had some sort of tool to make this easier. There we go. I'll push that back. Okay. So there's that one. I don't know if it matters which way that faces. Yeah, that's locked in. Try to get this other one on. And sure, back in the day at a dealership or something, when they were doing this kind of work all the time, they probably did it a lot quicker or had other techniques that I'm unfamiliar with. So pad goes in. That's where those other bolts go. There's got to be, yeah, on the back side. Okay. Man. This is a long way to get to putting on a simple pair of calipers. Okay. So then this will slip over. And these bolts go into their special little rubber carriers. You know, you know what? Am I messing up again? I might be messing up again. I know I set the, I have to find the old calipers because I know, I don't know where I set them. I know that there is the little brackets that go on the backside Where did I put those? I'll have to find them. Hang on. Take a coffee break. Let me find those parts. Okay. So I found these pieces, and you know, these were kind of, as I cleaned them up, I discovered they were kind of silver. So I just blasted them and I sprayed them with, in this case, Rust-Oleum stainless paint. And then I cleaned up these little bolts and these four with the Loctite. Two of those went in the bottom here of this part, and then these upper ones were the bolts that hold the caliper on. And what I also decided to do, I've got some official grease that they would use on brake parts. So I'm going to put some of that on these as well. And I don't know if it's that critical or not, but I just kind of want to make it a little more official. So now I should be able to put this together, I hope. So if I come in, and I can't tell where the camera's looking, so, but if I come in from behind where the banjo bolt would go in, that bolt there goes in. I got the two little bolts. These were the ones with the 3/8 head. That's those. And then this one, which I will apply some more of the official grease to. I always save these from when I do brakes on other cars. And push that in there. Okay. Okay. Now, the other one, a little 3/8, I think they were. What the point of that little covering is. Okay. Now, the other ones go here on the back side. It holds the anti-rattle pieces. Maybe that's what they're called. Aha. Got one to start. Yeah, that's all there is to it. That's all you gotta do. All right, I have the driver's side rotor caliper on, and things went okay. You know, it's complicated with all these extra clips and pins and everything else. So as I've said, I really do appreciate modern brakes. And on the other side, I have the rotor on, but I did not install the caliper. And the reason for that is the caliper is a different color. So if you look at this one, which is a greenish gray color, and you compare that to this one, which is a kind of a silvery gold color, that's not going to work. I need them to match. So I'm not going to put that on. Also, the brake hoses are different. This one has a gold on gold configuration. This one has a gold on silver, and I'd rather have the matching gold on gold. Now, the plan was to get all this together and get it on the ground, and it didn't happen. I didn't get the parts till late yesterday, and so I got as much done as I could. I still have the rear axle put in. I'm not going to do that yet because I still need to put the caliper on, and I'm going to see if Kentucky Mustang can get me a matching caliper at least, if not the brake hose as well. Well, that'll be the end of this video. I didn't get as much done as I wanted. I did want to get the rear end underneath it. I'm not going to do it. No real benefit to that at the moment. It would be raising and lowering the car multiple times. Don't need to do that. I am going to try to either get another caliper from Kentucky Mustang, or I may try one of the local parts stores and see if I can't get something there, maybe do an exchange. I don't know, but I want those, at least I want those calipers to match. The brake hoses, I'm not too concerned about. Those can be bolted on later when somebody else finishes all of the brake lines and all the plumbing and stuff that I'm not going to do. So I'm going to continue on and get done what I can, and hopefully get this a little closer to getting all the sheet metal retest fitted again and fine-tuning everything. Now, I do have multiple videos on Patreon that are related to all of this stuff, and those videos are longer and have more details in them than the short videos or shorter videos that I'm putting on here. So if you want to help me out and join Patreon, you can join for $5 and be able to see what's going on and get more information. And there are different levels to that as well. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description below. But I also want to thank my patrons who are supporting me at this very moment. They help me out by keeping me motivated and keeping me going in making these videos. So thanks for being here, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Alright, so I'm going to put in the strut rod, and what I need to do first is run down one of these nuts all the way to the bottom. Let's see how hard that's going to be. Oh, great. Okay, let me take care of this real quick. Now on this side, of course I've put the nuts in one pocket and the washers in the other, so that was smart. This might be another one of those things where it needs to be on the ground. You know what? Let's quit dropping that. What do we say? And the nut, just to keep everything from moving around. See how many times I can drop that.